Losing a round in Valorant against enemies who are on an eco buy is one of the worst things that can happen. And although it's not the hardest to win against an eco buy, it's still crucial to have a good idea of how to play against it. Because first of all, you obviously want to win the round. And second of all, you want to have as few casualties as possible. The lower amount of people who dies on your team, the better economy you will have going forward. So today we'll be taking a look at some theories, and then watch some professional games using those theories. So there's three main approaches that most team uses on attack. The first approach being going as a group, so you basically just go as 5 and either rush a side or slow work a side together. The second one being playing passive, so you would do a passive default where you just spread out over the entire map, just holding for pushes. And then the third one is going as pairs, taking areas. So generally speaking, you don't want to be alone on an eco, so you would go as a pair of 2 or a pair of 3 and work an area of a map together. Now I'll show some examples of teams grouping up and hitting a side as 5 together. This approach is generally very safe, since you always have the gun advantage and also the utility advantage. So even if you were to go into a full stack, you should still win the round pretty comfortably most of the time. Sometimes teams also do a little variation of this, where they have a lurker. That way, the lurker can gain information on the opposite side of the map, and also take space if needed on the opposite side of the map, if for example the initial push gets stopped. So the second approach is to take control of the map in pairs of 2 and 3. Once the control has been taken, you would typically either group up as 5 and hit a side together, or you could split the side, whatever is most convenient. Because some chokes are really tiny to go through, which is not ideal when you play against pistols, so therefore you might want to split the side instead. This approach of pairing up and taking map control in pairs is just like any of the approaches in this video, pretty safe to execute. So this third anti-eco approach I'll be talking about is the passive default. So it's a very simple and effective concept. You're sitting far back and holding for the enemies to push, and eventually you're gonna group up and hit a side together with your team. In this next clip on Haven, we see the guard doing a very popular anti-eco where they triple swing C long, while the 2 last people are holding map control elsewhere. This is a good anti-eco because you get the long range C long, you might get a kill, and then obviously you have some decent map control C long, while you're also controlling the rest of the map. Now, let's take a look at some anti-ecos on defense. So I mainly see 2 approaches on defense. The first one being playing very long distance, and here are 2 very basic examples of how you can play long distance. And obviously the advantage of playing long distance is that you're gonna have the gun advantage, so the longer the distance, the better for you. And the other approach is to give up a side completely, aka play retake for the side, and that means you can stronghold the other side. This is most common on Haven, for example, where you would typically just give up B and stronghold A and C. So here are 2 quick examples of what I just talked about. Try to notice how far back the defenders are playing in both of these pro games. So lastly, I want to show an example of the defenders playing retake on a side and strongholding the other side. This is actually a really cool round from Guild, and I'm a big fan of this anti-eco they do. So basically they have 1 on each side, A and B, and then they have the rest of the players mid. So the mid players will instantly react to whichever side gets first contact, and then the opposite side will play retake. So in this case, as you can see, there's contact on B, that means the mid players will rotate to B, and Guild will just play retake on A. So that wraps up the video. There is obviously a little more depth into it, but this is just the basics of the anti-ecos. I hope you enjoyed the video and maybe learned something. Please leave some feedback in the comments, and I will see you next time.